Oh my gosh. Look, I don't even really want to talk about this game, alright? It's pretty good. It's not as good as BioShock 1, but it's pretty good, alright? Is that good enough? Here's the title. BioShock 2, pretty good. That's the pretty good game. Okay? Is that what everyone wants? Is that it? Is that good? No? Alright, look, I've got a half-finished script from when I was in finals week at my college, so my brain was operating like it was made of half-baked mashed potatoes, but I guess I can throw something together with that. I can write some half-funny jokes. I can write some jokes. Okay, shut up. Just watch the video. So BioShock 2 takes place 8 years after the original BioShock. You play as Subject Delta, a prototype Big Daddy, which... alright, slight problem right off the bat. How on earth is this prototype Big Daddy better than the final product? Like, this Big Daddy has the drill, a bunch of weapons, and plasmids, and like... you know what, whatever, it's not that important. So yeah, you're a Big Daddy tasked with protecting your little sister, and the game opens with you literally immediately failing at your task. Maybe this is why you're just the prototype. Anyway, you're quickly introduced to the game's main antagonist, Sophia Lamb, who, after her goon hits you with the control plasmids, forces you to kill yourself in front of your daughter.
Now, take the pistol. Place it against your head. Fire.
Ouch. But Subject Delta isn't gonna let a little thing like a bullet through the skull slow him down, and he's revived 10 years later in a somehow still not completely flooded rapture. Your little sister Eleanor starts communicating with you telepathically. How does she do this, you ask? Well, it's kind of explained, but I don't exactly know, but look, let's just go with it, alright? Eleanor asks you to come rescue her from Sophia Lamb, and you stomp off to explore Rapture again. Along the way, you're aided by Augustus Sinclair. If you were paying attention in the original BioShock, you might remember him as the guy who rented out prisoners for genetic tests of the effects of plasmids. Along the way, you're going to run into more colorful characters. Only unlike in BioShock 1, you have a choice whether or not you want to let them live or scramble their brains with a giant F-off drill. You know what, buddy? I'm going to let you off with a warning this time. Just kidding. This mechanic also ties into the multiple endings of the game. You see, where BioShock 1 had only 2 different endings, I mean, technically there was 3, but 2 of them were basically the same, so whatever, I don't know. BioShock 2 has like 6 or 7 different endings depending on who you decide to spare, as well as deciding to save or harvest little sisters. Without spoiling too much, I'd say the story here is a little bit weaker than in BioShock 1, but it's far more directed than the first game, and that's up to you to decide whether or not that's a good or bad thing. The story is much more in your face than it was in the original BioShock, and I found myself listening to less audio logs and more just going off what the characters were telling me to do. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just, you know, different. So if there's one way in which BioShock 2 is seriously improved from its predecessor, it's in its gameplay and mechanics, more specifically the combat. You see, on the surface, the combat seems pretty similar. You've got your relatively standard selection of BioShock's signature plasmids, a solid yet fairly standard of FPS weapons, and a few different ammo types for each weapon, just like in the first game. However, the difference between the two games is that in BioShock 1, you were a scared white boy in a beige sweater, and every fight was a fight for survival against the terrifying unknown. In BioShock 2, however, you're a 7-foot-tall walking tank with a bulletproof suit and a giant drill. The difference seems to be that the combat was kept interesting in BioShock 1 by making you feel vulnerable, and in BioShock 2, the combat is made interesting by making you feel powerful. There's a few different ways the game makes you feel like the unstoppable walking badass you are, from hearing the bullets ping off your helmet, to Delet's grunts and roars, to actually being able to use a weapon and a plasmid at the same time, which makes the combat so much more fluid than in BioShock 1. The only time you don't feel quite this powerful is when you're fighting the Big Sisters. These genetic monstrosities are sort of like the Big Daddies in BioShock 1, except they're a lot faster and hit a lot harder. This interruption isn't necessarily a bad thing, and adds an interesting amount of challenge to the game. They do sometimes come at inconvenient moments and are kind of annoying, but they are satisfying to beat, so, you know, take that for what you will. But what I really want to talk about here, and what really kicked off the power fantasy for me, was the power drill. You see, when you start the game, you have the drill, and it's, you know, fine, it does the job, it works, but later on you unlock the drill charge. At first I was like, man, what's the point? Bullets are faster, and they don't require to get up close and personal to these genetic freaks. Then I tried it out, and oh baby, that is all I did for the rest of the games. Your time is near, make peace with your God, here we go, get ready, boy! Also, do you remember that hacking minigame in BioShock 1 that everyone hated and is generally considered the worst part of that game, other than possibly the last boss fight?
Some of the mechanics feel a bit dated, like the stupid hacking minigame that I forgot to talk about that is just the bane of my existence and so terrible. Why did they even include this? This is so stupid!
Yeah, that's pretty much gone now, replaced with hacking drones and turrets with this sort of pseudo QuickTime event. You can do this either by firing darts at it or by just getting up close and personal. Personally, I think it's a great improvement, and I found myself hacking a lot more stuff throughout the game. So it sounds like BioShock 2 is basically just an improved version of BioShock 1, with perhaps the exception of the story, and everyone loved BioShock 1, so everyone must have loved this game, right? Right? Well, not quite everyone. You see, despite the improvements that this game has made, many people thought it was just too similar to the original. Like many things, this comparison can best be made using pizza. BioShock 1 was a delicious 4-cheese pizza. Perhaps the crust was a bit crunchy at times and the last few bites weren't as good as the rest of it, but overall it was a very satisfying package. BioShock 2, on the other hand, is a large stuffed garlic crust pizza with pepperoni and black olives, my personal favorite. You can taste the obvious improvements and appreciate them, but you don't appreciate them quite as much as you might have during the first one now that you're full, and you kinda have to force yourself to finish it because you want to have the full pizza experience, and sometimes it's a bit too cheesy with repetitive missions and some plot issues, and this metaphor is starting to break down a bit. And so, in conclusion, I like this game a lot more than I originally thought I would. I understand why many people, especially when it first came out, didn't like it as much just because of how similar it was to the original, and I kinda get why a lot of people skip it when playing through the series for the first time, but I really think time has been kind to BioShock 2, and if you're playing through the series for the first time, or just skipped it the first time around, it's well worth a look.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. It took way too long to actually make and edit and put together, and it's been a busy week, but anyway, it's done now, so that's good, I guess. Anyway, if you'd like the video, maybe like and subscribe to the channel so you can see more stuff like this. Let me know what you think about BioShock 2 down in the comments, and maybe let me know what else you want to see on this channel. So that's all I got. That's the signing off. Okay.